Professor Bernhardi by Arthur Schnitzler, in a new version by Samuel Adamson.
Philomena? You thirsty?
Where's Professor Bernhardi?
Sip the water.
I'm so tired.
Go back to sleep now.
No sign of the boss, nurse.
He's still not back from the autopsy, Miss Arkwright's Point now.
They're taking their time.
Yes.
3 autopsies from one ward in a week. Unheard of. And we'll have a 4th tomorrow, won't we, Philomena?
Mr. Arkwright's Point now. The patient.
She can't hear me. Give her some camphor.
Should I wait for Professor Bernhardi?
No, just give her camphor. I'm practically a doctor, you know.
Yes, Mr. Arkwright's Point now. It's not bad.
Father's on his way.
They've finished the autopsy?
Yes.
What did they discover, Oscar, if you don't mind me asking?
The tumour started in the kidney and was distinctly defined.
Well, that means Professor
Abenwald was wrong in his diagnosis and my father was right. How is she?
It won't be long.
Poor girl. Nothing to be done.
So, nurse, are you coming to the Institute ball?
No, Mr. Arkwright's Point now.
Oh, pity. Fair of the season. And I've heard on the grapevine, Oscar, that you've composed a waltz in honour of Prince Schnitzler and the Institute board.
All right, Arkwright's Point. There's no need to play now.
Morning.
Good morning, Professor Bernhardi.
Good morning, Professor. Morning. A good autopsy then, Professor. Just heard from Dr. Oscar that our diagnosis was correct.
Yes, though ours was also incorrect.
But didn't Professor Abenwald diagnose?
The Elizabeth Institute is one whole teaching hospital, not several rival departments. If Professor Abenwald gets it wrong, I get it wrong, and so do you. Is Philomena still with us?
Not for much longer, Papa.
Relatives?
She hasn't had a single visitor.
A lover?
I bet she doesn't even know his name.
Keep her comfortable.
Yes, Professor.
This blood pressure's still...
Yes, Professor.
What are we going to record as the cause of death?
Septicemia. What do you think?
Yes, and the cause of the septicemia, because it was definitely an abortion.
We can't prove that. There was no evidence of injury. We've written a police report, and for us it's over. Just as it is for that poor girl. Thank you, Mr. Arkwright's Pointner. Enter these autopsy notes, would you?
Yes, Professor Bernhardi.
Right. Who's next?
It's Herman's
Septicemia. Not an abortion, not a grisly backstreet abortion.
Am I intruding?
Professor Abenwald, you scared me.
The director about?
Doing his rounds, shall I...
No, I'll wait here. So, great celebrations in Jerusalem, hmm?
I don't follow, Professor.
This morning's autopsy. Your department. Diagnostically victorious.
Oh, Professor Bernhardi made a guess, I think. A good guess.
A guess? It was diagnostic knack. Our director is famous for it. You look tired, Arkwright's Pointner. Exams getting to you?
No. Yes.
This'll perk you up. I flunked physiology.
Oh. Yeah.
Tell Bernhardi I need to speak to him.
Nothing serious, I hope?
Oh, yes, very. Professor Tugendvetter wants to leave the Department of Dermatology and Syphilis 6 months early. Who is going to replace him?
Well, that is serious.
Arkwright's Pointner, do you go to Professor Tugendvetter's lectures?
Yes, Professor?
Tell me, what are Dr. Feuermann's lectures like?
Dr. Feuermann?
When he stands in, if Tugendvetter's called off to a fox hunt.
Oh, he's good. A bit scholarly. I shouldn't really be talking about a future boss.
Don't understand.
If Professor Tugendvetter is leaving the Institute... then
It's not ordained that Dr. Feuermann will take his place. There are other candidates. I've just received a letter from one. Do you find Feuermann supercilious?
Yes.
Lacks modesty, does he? True to type. A big-mouthed Israelite, as my cousin in the lower house would say.
Oh, that's good. Big-mouthed Israelite.
Austria has her share, don't you think?
I've got to go! No, Philomena, you must get back into bed.
I feel so alive.
Philomena, come on.
They're coming to pick me up.
Yes.
Look at the sun through
What
the
is
window.
going on here, nurse?
Camphor.
Camphor.
I was instructed by Mr.
Oh, say no more. She must lie down.
Philomena.
Mr. Hockright's point now. If you're... Ebenwald. Problem?
Yes, actually, Bernhardi, we must talk about Tugendvetter immediately.
One moment. Mr. Hockright's point now. A sepsis case. A girl of 18, Ebenwald, on death's door, hardly has a pulse. Suddenly she wants to get out of bed. She thinks she's in the pink of health. Camphor, you see, it does that.
You mean I should give her some more?
No, you shouldn't have administered any. Oh, never mind. Perhaps the sweetest hour of her life is down to you, though. That wasn't why you did it, was it? Right, Ebenwald, what's Tugendvetter done now?
Damn it! Oh, well, look who it is, Nurse Telltale.
I don't think Philomena should have had that injection.
As if the injection's going to be the thing that's going to kill her. Where are you off to in such a rush anyway?
I thought I should send for the priest for her, Mr. Hockright's point.
You might as well. No real tragedy if you're too late, though.
Next Friday, Professor Tugendvetter. That's 6 months ahead of your official departure date.
I know, Bernhardi, but the Minister of Education is desperate for me to start at the clinic. Oh, he said hello, by the way.
Who?
The Minister. Went on and on about your salad days. Is it a problem?
We need to find someone to deputise. Luckily, you have a very capable assistant.
Young Feuerman, eh? Good lad. You don't want him to get too comfy in my shoes there.
Might I suggest a meeting with Dr. Joseph Hell, who
Dr.
is
Hell?
an associate professor at the University of Graz.
I know who Dr. Hell is, Ebenwald.
I received a letter from him this morning. He'd be happy to consider succeeding Professor Tugendvetter.
Ditto. You wrote to me.
When can we expect publication of his collected letters?
Fine man, fine doctor.
Does this mean, Tugendvetter, that you want to propose Dr. Hell as your successor over your own assistant?
I don't think Feuerman's even considered.
As being modest, his latest article on serum is brilliant.
We'd be lucky to have Dr. Hell, Bernhardi.
Then the University of Graz has done wonders for the man. Wasn't thought up to much when he was in Vienna.
Well, who thought that?
You?
Well, I can't stop anyone from putting himself forward as a candidate.
Yes, but in the case of two, you'd have to choose. Conceivably, the choice could be between Dr. Feuerman and Dr. Hell, in which case...
Might I suggest an urgent meeting about the definitive filling of the post?
No, that's unnecessary. There's a procedure.
But we really
Are we
should...
trying to prevent Dr. Feuerman from proving his teaching ability?
Of course not. But we're a private teaching hospital, not a finishing school for lecturers.
I agree to Professor Tugendvetter's early departure, and I note Dr. Hell's candidacy. We vote in a week.
Hello? Anyone here? Been burning a candle at both ends, have we?
Sorry, Dr. Adler.
I was wondering if I could have a quick glance at Bernhardi's notes from this morning's autopsy, Mr.
Hockright's point now.
Quite a mouthful, isn't it?
What's about, Hockright's Pointer?
In his office, I think, Professor Kuprian.
Adler. We can take it today's skull won't go walkabout like the one that used to belong to the paralytic.
My assistant's under strict instructions. Oops.
Here you are.
Thank you. Patient only with you a week.
Yes, he was Professor Ebenwald's patient before that.
Well, whatever else you might say, Bernhardi is a first-rate diagnostician.
What else might you say, Dr. Adler?
I beg your pardon?
Was that Papa?
No, it was Professor Kuprian.
Papa has to come now. Philomena's begging to see him.
Who?
A patient. A slut, one for the slab tomorrow, Dr. Adler.
The Elizabeth Institute, good morning. I'm afraid Professor Tugendvetter has just left to go hunting. Privy Councillor Winkler. I'll ask him to call you.
Excuse me.
Father Ada, you're here.
I had a message. The patient's name is Philomena Butt.
Yes, Father Ada. Professor Bernhardi's ward, 3rd floor.
Thank you.
Money, 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 Bernhardi. That's what this place needs. Now, for the first time in the history of Austria, a clinical professor is Minister of Education. Think about that. What an opportunity. We need to get in there, see what we can squeeze out of him.
We won't get anything out of that man, Coprian. Excuse me, I've got a student to see.
I've arranged an appointment.
You what?
I want you to come. The first thing I'm going to ask him for is a subsidy.
Coprian, the minister is our nemesis. He concocted so many shabby rumours about this place when we started that we nearly went under.
Blood under the bridge.
We were founded to steal income from GPs, to contaminate Vienna with venereal disease.
Now. Privy Councillor Winkler from the board
Papa!
casually mentioned to me only...
I'm sorry to interrupt, Professor Coprian. It's Philomena Butt, Papa. You must come now.
Oh, go. I'll follow.
A deceased, Professor. Just a girl.
Adler, what are you doing in the land of the living?
Just checking some notes, Bernhardi. Your student here has been very helpful.
Yes. Wait for me, will you, Coprian? Won't take long.
Take your time. After you want to. What's wrong with her, anyway?
Septicemia. Abortion.
When I was an assistant, I knew a rather shifty MD who was preoccupied with abortions.
Pardon me, am I on the right floor? Professor Bernhardi's ward?
Yes, Father, that way.
Thank you.
Then he was found cut to ribbons in some seedy beer house on the wrong side of town. By day, a doctor. By night, God knows what.
Oh, juicy.
Hello.
Father Rader.
Hello, Father.
I hope I'm not too late.
No, Father. Professor Bernhardi is with the patient now. I'm Kurt Hochreizpointner, his student.
So it's not completely hopeless?
Oh, yes, Father. Completely.
Hochreizpointner, if you want to learn anything, you really Father Rader.
Good morning, Professor. I can take over from you. She's still conscious?
Yes, you could say she's more conscious than ever. She's quite well in a way. Leave her now, nurse. Ask her, come in here, will you? She'll be all right now.
Good morning, nurse. It was you who rang me.
Yes, Father.
But now she's well.
She's euphoric.
Well, that's wonderful. I know someone who was ready for death a few months ago. I gave him the last rites. I saw him yesterday, a healthy man.
And it might have been you who gave him back his strength for life, Father.
But the priest has missed my point, Dr. Adler. I meant that Philomena is ignorant of her condition. She thinks she's recovered, but she hasn't.
I see.
I worry, Father, that the sight of
Don't
you...
be afraid for her. I'm not here to pronounce a death sentence.
Oh, no, of course not. All the same.
Someone could prepare the patient.
But that wouldn't help. The last thing she expects is you. Father, she's unaware. She's happy. She thinks she's about to resume her life. I don't think it would be a good thing. I'd venture to say it would be quite an ungodly thing if you were to shake her out of the delusion.
Is there the possibility that I might somehow affect the course of the illness in a negative way?
You might hasten the end only by minutes, probably.
I ask again, could your patient recover? Would my presence pose any danger in this respect? If so, I'll leave immediately, of course.
There's no doubt about it. Philomena is dying.
Then, Professor, I don't see why...
Forgive me, Father, but I'm here in my capacity as a doctor. One of my responsibilities, when everything else is beyond me, is to help my patients to die happily. At least as much as I can.
I think we take die happily to mean different things. Your nurse said this patient needs absolution more than many others.
We're all sinners, aren't we?
This isn't the time for that. Her end is near. Somewhere in a place only God can see. She's longing to confess her sins. You can't know otherwise.
Father Rader, she doesn't know she's dying. She's not contrite. She's happy.
All the more reason for me not to leave till I've administered the consolations of our holy religion. Professor, you're blocking my way.
I can't let you go to my patient.
I was called...
Her welfare is entrusted to me till the end. As a doctor, I have to forbid you from walking through that door.
Forbid me?
Yes, Father.
Take your hand off my shoulder, Professor.
Father?
What is it?
It's too late.
Oscar, check on her, please. Did you tell the patient the priest was here?
Yes, Professor.
Who told you to do that?
I thought that...
No, it's all right. Now, don't get upset. Did she say anything?
She was in tears. She said, am I really going to die?
It's over.
Don't be alarmed, Father. It's not your fault. You wanted to do your duty, I wanted to do mine. I'm sorry enough I didn't succeed.
You're not in a position to pardon me, Professor Bernhardi. That creature has died a sinner, without the consolations of religion. And it's your fault.
I take the blame.
That remains to be seen. Goodbye.
Well now, Dr. Adler, autopsy at 8?
That wasn't right.
Why not?
One case. You think you can change things?
What are you talking about, Cyprian? As if that were my intention.
It would be disingenuous of me, Professor Bernhardi, if I didn't say here that I can't support you formally over this matter.
It would be disingenuous of me, Dr. Adler, if I didn't say I guessed as much. Oh. Well, Oscar, hopefully it won't destroy your career.
Papa.
No, I didn't mean that.
Professor, I thought that...
What, exactly? It doesn't matter now.
We always... Mr. Hockroyd's
Yes,
point...
and I didn't stop her, Professor.
No, Mr. Hockroyd's point, no. Churchgoer, are you?
Austria is a Christian state, Professor.
Yes. God forgive you. You know what you're doing.
Oh, shut up. Why did you try and make an excuse? You did your duty. What the hell's wrong with you?
Director!
Director? Not for much longer. That Jew just dug his own grave.
Yes?
Bernhardi, now.
He's not at home this afternoon, Professor Felix. He's in Baden with Archduke Constantine.
And that's Oscar running his hands over the keys instead of tending his father's surgery, I take it?
Yes, sir.
Then Oscar will have to do.
Oh.
Oscar? Oscar?
Professor Felix.
What a pretty ditty. Your father must be proud.
He's,
attending royalty, I know. Your housekeeper let me in. Give him a message. Tell him Princess Stickschenstein didn't receive my wife this morning.
Princess Stickschenstein?
In her capacity as president of the ball committee, my wife was invited to see the princess. Ball patroness and wife of the president of our board.
Dr. Oscar, Dr. Loewenstein is...
Oscar?
Christ, Loewenstein, wouldn't you know?
Sorry to barge in. Felix, you'll be interested in this. Princess Stickschenstein has resigned from the ball committee.
What? Why?
Oscar, honestly.
It's become public. In a week.
I have to go. I prefer to say what I think to my friend Bernhardi in person.
I have to tell you, I'm on Papa's side, Professor Felix.
Of course, Oscar, that's your duty.
And my conviction.
And mine, Felix. I emphatically believe a spiteful something has been fabricated out of an innocent nothing. To be explicit, there'd be no such fabrication if Bernhardi didn't happen to be a Jew.
Here we go again, your idée fixe. I'm an anti-Semite, I suppose, even though I've always had at least one Jewish assistant. There's no anti-Semitism towards decent Jews.
Oh, really?
We'd be standing here if a Christian had done it.
Perhaps, but that Christian would have thousands of allies. Shh! Do you hear that?
What?
Ha! Silence! From a certain kind of Jew who'd do anything to stay in favour with the great and good, and from the German nationalists quietly sharpening their claws.
It's people like you, Loewenstein, sniffing out anti-Semitism where it doesn't exist, who are responsible for Austria's regrettable descent into...
Hello? Papa.
Has someone died?
The princess has resigned as patroness of the ball.
Then we better find another princess. Vienna has ample stock.
I think I'll go, Papa. Mm-hmm. Goodbye, Dr. Loewenstein.
Oscar?
Professor Felix.
Bernhardi?
Good afternoon, Felix.
This morning, Princess Stickschenstein refused to see my wife.
Really? And?
She's walked out as ball patroness, and she refused to admit my wife.
Yes. And?
Don't be simple, Bernhardi. You know perfectly well that as trivial as it may be in itself, it's telling. A certain matter is being received in a certain manner in high-ranking circles.
Did your wife send you here to give me a telling off?
How dare you? I would never dream. I'm here to ask what you plan to do to make amends to my wife.
Professor, you don't seriously mean that you're going to take...
Excuse me, sir. Professor Cyprian is insisting.
Oh, let me guess, Cyprian. A princess is in a mood about a ball.
Who cares about the princess? It's the prince.
Excuse me, Cyprian. Bernhardi, once again, what do you plan to do to make amends to my wife after Princess Schnitzler's snub?
Professor Felix, tell your lovely wife that I think her too clever to believe for 1 second that she was truly upset to be barred entry to the salon of Her Most Transcendent Highness the Princess Goose.
There's nothing else to say after a remark like that. Gentlemen?
You shouldn't have said that.
Why not? Princess Stixenstein is a pig-headed...
For God's sake, I'm not worried about her. It's her husband. He's president of our board. Have you considered, Bernhardi, that it might resign?
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
It's impossible, Cyprian. I have lots of friends on the board. Privy Councillor Winkler and the Archduke. I just called to see him.
What did he want?
To tell me that 200 years ago I'd have been burnt at the stake.
Very encouraging.
He also said, and I'd be up there with you.
Aha!
This is not a joke.
I know that, Cyprian.
You don't honestly believe the Archduke would support you publicly? He'll bow to pressure. We've already lost Stichtenstein. Bishop Leibenberg's not likely to...
So we lose a few board members. It's not as if we rely on them for anything. Most of our money comes from Jews.
Yes, and I can name you a dozen who donate to us for 2 reasons. A, there's an Archduke on the board. B, a bishop. Board walks, Jewish money dries up, Institute dies.
Because I did my duty as a doctor?
Let it collapse. What? We'll found another institute, a better one without people like Felix and Ebenwald. I warned you about them.
Shut up, Löwenstein. Privy Councillor Winkler has suggested a way to stop this.
I suppose it's an apology or something unctuous.
No one's suggesting he wears sackcloth and ashes at the church door. A simple expression of regret.
But I don't regret anything.
Surely you could explain, without compromising yourself, that you never meant to cause any religious offence.
But people know that.
You're always talking as if everyone is good. Of course people know it. The people who want your neck in a noose know it better than anyone. The signs are there, Bernhardi. They're planning to depict you as an evildoer, as a man who's cocked a snook at the church.
But I never intended
The accusation's coming. You should have guarded yourself against this indiscretion. You especially, as you don't have certain preconditions that would allow one to understand the inner meaning of the Catholic sacraments.
Tell me exactly what I'm lacking.
Oh, I've heard it all. From good people, enlightened people. Forget about them. What about everyone else?
The mob, you mean?
Yes, Löwenstein, the mob. It exists. Do what you can to calm things down. Please. A statement. No offence intended. You have the perfect opportunity to make it tomorrow at our committee vote for Professor Tugendwetter's successor.
Yes, we should be discussing that, not this damn nonsense.
You have to do it, Bernhardi, because we are at a crossroads. I spoke to the minister.
About this?
No. I was right. He can help us. If we turn the right way, the Institute's future is guaranteed. He longs for reconciliation. He wants to put us right in the middle of a scheme to reform medical education and public health in Austria.
10 years ago, he blamed us for the collapse of society because we treated syphilis.
What if this were your son's future on the line? Would you worry about your pride then? Think how hard you've had to defend the Institute. You and I built it from the ground up. You really want to play the hero?
No, of course I don't.
Because you're a doctor, and you know that saving a human life is more important than waving a banner.
Oh, how fallacious.
Go back to pediatrics, Löwenstein. You weren't there when we had nothing. The Institute, Bernhardi. Our Institute.
Dinner at the Riedhof, 9:30. I'll bring a draft.
Would you like to order, sir?
Not yet, thank you. I'm waiting for a friend.
Very good, sir.
It was not my intention to cause any... No. It was not my intention that day on the ward to cause any...
Bernhardi.
Ebenwald, hello.
Waiting for someone?
Cyprian, as it happens.
Business?
No, pleasure.
Oh, you surprise me. May I sit?
By all means. Would you like to order?
Oh, I've eaten.
Any good?
This is a lucky coincidence. I was on my way to see you.
So late?
Bernhardi, there's movement against you.
I'm feeling Viennese. Schnitzel, then strudel.
There's movement against our institute. As vice director...
If you mean the rumour the board's about to resign en masse, it's a storm in a teacup.
The board's about to resign? Well, it's the first I've heard of it. Shall I compound this bleak news? There's going to be a question asked about you in Parliament.
What?
Big, isn't it? Lost for words?
I can think of many, Ebenveld.
Bernhardi, we don't want this tedious matter to reach the House.
A parliamentary question in the name of the religion I've offended? If there are zealous men out there who want that, nothing on earth will stop them.
Sir?
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. If they could just be made to understand there was no offence, or no large offence, if they could just see there's no... how to put it... no deliberate anti-Catholic bias at the Institute.
But why spell it out?
You misunderstand. I'm suggesting proof.
Proof?
A specific case, from which the conclusion, no anti-Catholic bias, could be drawn without doubt.
To build such a case.
Already exists.
What?
Tomorrow we decide on Professor Tugendvetter's successor. There are two candidates.
It's one who deserves the job and one who doesn't.
Dermatology and syphilis isn't really your field,
It's
Professor.
risible to mention the two men in the same breath. Dr. Hell's published one or two tolerable articles. Dr. Feuermann's works are revelatory.
Don't agree. And Dr. Feuermann's not popular. Even his friends don't like him.
Well, this is neither here nor there. I don't decide. We, as a committee, do.
You do decide in the case of an equal vote. For Dr. Feuermann, Kuprian, Adler, Löwenstein, that old revolutionary Pflugfelder...
And Tugendvetter. I see. Yet I did get the impression last week that he'd already promised you his vote.
You have no proof of that?
Just a hunch.
You know as well as I, Tugendvetter won't vote for Feuermann. His own assistant. If that doesn't tell you...
Tugendvetter should be more grateful. Most of his published articles for 1899 and 1900 have borne his name and his assistant's research.
Wouldn't you prefer to say that to Professor Tugendvetter's face?
I always tell people what I think of them to their faces. Ebenveld, you're campaigning for Dr. Hell because he's not a Jew.
I have the right to respond, Bernhardi, that you're campaigning for Dr. Feuermann.
It's obviously slipped your mind that I voted for you 3 years ago.
You swallowed hard, though, didn't you? And I'd have to do the same for Feuermann. I won't. I'd regret it. If Dr. Hell were an imbecile, I wouldn't vote for him or ask it of you. But he's as talented as Feuermann. If, in addition, we can get rid of the stench of a certain mess of your making... We need to do whatever it takes to prevent that parliamentary question, Bernhardi. Think about it. And let's talk again before the committee vote tomorrow. All this is confidential, of course.
Oh, forget discretion, Ebenveld. Tell the men who sent you.
How dare!
Tell your clerical parliamentary chums I don't accept deals.
I won't take your order. No one sent me, and it's not to save my skin. I don't have to answer for your conduct toward that priest. It's for the Institute, and you. I considered you a friend.
You leave an enemy.
Bernhardi!
I'd prefer that, at least it's honest.
You've made your choice.
Oh, I'm sorry, mate. Ebenveld, what are you doing here?
Offering the director humble pie. Alas, he's being Viennese about it and has plumped for Schnitzel.
Oh, what was that about?
Nothing.
Right. I'll order, and then you can read it to me.
There's nothing to read. There's no apology. Kuprian, good night.
But...
Gentlemen, there are two candidates for the position of head of the Department of Dermatology and Syphilis. Dr. Joseph Hell, Associate Professor at the University of Graz, and Dr. Samuel Feuermann, Professor Tugendvetter's assistant. Please cast your votes. Professor Ebenveld.
Dr. Hell.
Professor Kuprian.
Dr. Feuermann.
Dr. Löwenstein.
Dr. Feuermann.
Professor Tugendvetter. Professor Tugendvetter.
Dr. Hell.
Dr. Schreiman.
Dr. Hell.
Professor Pflugfelder.
Dr. Feuermann.
Dr. Adler. Feuerman. Professor Felix.
Dr. Hell.
Thank you, gentlemen. 4 votes for Dr. Joseph Hell and 4 for Dr. Samuel Feuerman, in which case, as director of the Elizabeth Institute, I make use of my statutory right to cast the deciding vote. I have decided on Dr. Samuel Feuerman. Dr. Feuerman, as duly elected, will commence his duties forthwith. Thank you, gentlemen.
Lovely waltz, Oscar. Shame the Sticksensteins aren't here to dance to it.
Get away from me, Hockroyd's Point, you're drunk.
I've already told you, Abenval, this whole thing isn't about religion or denomination.
Shall we have some schnapps before Hockroyd's Pointner finishes it?
It's about tact.
You mustn't worry, my darling. No board members have turned up. It's nothing to do with you.
There's Privy Councillor Winkler.
That weasel is an exception. He wouldn't miss a ball.
Oh, cheers!
Even if I were a nationalist Jew, I'd oppose Bernhardi. As it happens, I'm a convert, which makes me as much a German, Austrian and Christian as you, Rosenblatt. Yet you seem bothered that I consider myself your ally.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Sometimes I think I'd have had an easier ride in this country as a Zionist.
Shryman, some of my friends think it odd that we're friends, true. Oh, hello. Remember, my student circle were dedicated German nationalists. You know the fork. Tankard thumping, no duelling for Jewish students or students descending.
How do you know I got this dueling scar when I was still a Jew?
Such a confusing country. You take more pride in your Jewish dueling scar than in all of your Austro-Germanity. Good Lord.
What?
Good Lord.
What?
The Minister for Education is here.
Where?
There.
Jesus Christ.
What?
He's talking to Bernhardi.
Professor Bernhardi.
Minister, what a surprise.
Shall we get some air? Who needs Sticksensteins at a ball?
You look well, Flint.
Thank you, Bernard.
We can't stay out here. People will talk.
Please at least congratulate me on my new job at the Ministry.
Congratulations, Excellency.
Restrained. Admirable. I know we've had our differences.
You did everything you could to bring my institute into disrepute.
I did think the place unsavoury, but believe me, the institute has no better friend. Didn't Couprian tell you? I want to carry out reforms in medical education and public health, and I want you to be at the centre of them. My old grudge wasn't personal. I had certain convictions, and I'm not a man to make compromises.
Excellency?
Ah, champagne, how lovely. Good health, Bernardi.
Minister. Do you remember a patient called Engelbert Wagner from back when we were assistants together?
Yes, I think so.
The unlucky victim of a misdiagnosis. At the autopsy, we learned he could have been saved. Horrifying. And as we were filing out, you whispered to me, I knew the diagnosis was wrong.
The only one.
What stopped you from speaking up? Conviction?
Bernardi, really. You remember our chief. He was a prickly so-and-so who couldn't stand it when assistants showed him up. I couldn't annoy him. I was on the brink of securing the professorship in Prague.
What, do you think it might have jeopardized your...
You overrate men, Bernhardi. It mightn't have cost me my career, but it would have set me back, and I wanted to get on with things. That patient was one sacrifice made in favour of the hundreds of others I'd subsequently saved. To cling like a limpet to the right thing in a petty singular case, it's missing the point. It does lack scale. So narrow-minded, dogmatic.
Am I a limpet, Flint?
Isn't it a lovely evening? Shall we walk towards the woods? In that quirky manner of yours, you failed in the heat of the moment to look beyond the ward. fact, your ward is in a Christian state. Now the tide's turning against you. And I honestly want, for your sake and the Institute's, to turn it back.
I do as well. What important things to do with my time? Oh, I tried, Flint. I wrote an apology.
You did? Excellent. Though given the latest details, perhaps not quite enough.
Latest details?
What you really need to do is to visit the priest.
Oh.
That'd create a first-rate impression. You did, after all, obstruct him by force.
Force?
You did so on his block the door and shove him with some ferocity?
That is a lie. I hardly touched him. I know who's behind this. I won't let those gossips...
Calm down, Bernhardi. You haven't been charged with anything. You can make your apology and give the lie to the tittle-tattle at the same time.
You don't understand. I did have an apology, but I ripped it up.
What? Why?
Well, things changed.
What?
Minister, is this moonlight stroll really about helping me out of my dilemma?
I wouldn't feel guilty about letting you face the music, Bernhardi. You behaved incorrectly towards the priest. But I care about the Institute. And about you.
But what you really want is to be spared the question in Parliament, yes?
Yes.
Oh, Flint. 24 hours ago, I could have done that for you.
Are they really going into the woods? What on earth are they talking about?
Do you mean that if you promised your vote to Dr. Hell, Ebenwald said he could stop the parliamentary question?
He has a cousin in the house, doesn't he?
A leading clerical.
With the clout to stop a question?
Definitely.
There you go.
Well, hanky-panky. And in the vote, you...
No, Flint.
You think Feuermann's the better doctor?
Dr. Hell is an ass. Even if they were equally distinguished, Ebenwald's manoeuvre made it impossible for me to vote for anyone but Feuermann. He started in his new position this morning.
You're not a politician, are you, Bernhardi?
No. Look, I know you've become one, but you're also a man of science, of truth. The important thing was that the most competent man got to contribute to medicine. Not that some question in Parliament be stopped to save my hide or yours. Honestly, a reasonable answer to the thing might be found after all. Ebenwald's watching us. We ought to...
Bernhardi, would you jot all this down for me? The ins and outs of the whole affair.
Why?
So that if the question is asked, I can answer with the incontrovertible truth.
You do that?
Of course.
Really?
I must. It's my duty.
You mean you're on my side?
I wasn't, I admit it, and I still disapprove of your behavior towards the priest. But this Ebenwald deal throws a whole new light on things. I want to give the Institute a subsidy. I want to nationalize it. The rotten apple that needs throwing out is Ebenwald, not you.
Good evening, Excellency. Might you come and meet my wife?
Good evening, Professor Ebenwald. Won't be long.
Very good.
Write a statement and get it to me before the evening is out. I shall expose their dirty tricks. Those corrupt parliamentary questioners will be putty in my hands. Oh dear.
Ah, Mr. Hockroyd's Pointner. A little the worse for wear.
Professor Bernhardi.
Youth. One of yours?
Flint.
Yes.
All this is the truth. If everything comes crashing down round your ears, I won't feel guilty.
Nor should you.
Are you sure it's worth it? It's a trivial matter.
Trivial? Don't you see what's at stake here? Light over dark. Forgive the cliché.
But the party you'd have to oppose stops at nothing. If the ministry is everything to you, then you shouldn't stand up for me.
You? This isn't about you. It's about justice. What could be more glorious?
Thank you, Minister.
Oh, no. Our mutual respect is built on firmer foundations than that.
Excellency! There you are!
Madam! I've been searching for you everywhere.
Ah, Professor Bernhardi.
Privy Councillor Winkler. Thank you for showing your face.
Wouldn't have missed it. Doctors have such a flair for dancing.
Some.
Professor, I'll be visiting you in the morning in my capacity as Secretary of the Board. Would you like the details now, so you have the night to sleep on?
The Board's resigned?
Yes.
Thank you, Privy Councillor Winkler.
I hope your chat with Minister Flint was a good one?
It was, Privy Councillor. It was.
Schreiman, Ebenwald. I'm sure you're going to give Bernhardi your full support at this meeting like the rest of us.
For what, Flugfelder? What's happened to him? The board's resigned and we'll be stony broke. 3 cheers for our director, whose tactlessness has landed us in penury.
You're everywhere now, aren't you mudflingers? I should have known you were one, Ebenwald, given your blood ties to a reptilian clerical in the lower house.
I beg your pardon?
What about you, Schreiman? Also against Bernhardi? Also livid he asked a priest to let a sick child die in peace?
There's no place for politics on the ward.
Bernhardi acted politically. This is balls.
Gentlemen, I'm following the board. I'm going to resign at this meeting.
What?
What else can I do if I'm not going to stick up for it?
Felix, no, there's another way. We have to make the board withdraw its resignation.
Won't happen, Ebenwald, as long as Bernhardi's in charge.
Precisely. As long as...
Oh, you're already thinking of that.
Evening all.
Adler?
You read the paper?
Why?
The question in Parliament.
Happened already?
The Vienna Daily has run a special evening edition.
You there, nurse? Run and buy us a daily, would you?
I did 2.
6. Make it a dozen.
How bad is it? Why didn't you bring one with you, Adler?
Good evening, gentlemen. Oh, look, it's Dr. Feuermann. Welcome to your first staff meeting.
He's got a paper.
Oh, so he's good for something.
Oh, I see. Professor Tugendvetter didn't tell me that the head of dermatology and syphilis brings the evening paper to the meetings.
Gentlemen, the wording of the question in the lower house. We, the undersigned members, consider it our duty to inform the government of an incident, etc. Father Franz Rader,
priest of the Church of St. Florian, was called to the deathbed of the critically ill Philomena Bayer by a secular nurse in order to administer the last rites. In the anteroom to the ward, Father found a group of doctors, including Professor Bernhardi,
head of etc., etc., who, on the grounds that the dying woman might sustain damage to her health as a result of the excitement, curtly ordered the priest to desist.
No, never!
Be quiet. Professor Bernhardi, who is of the Mosaic denomination, was notified by his reverend that he had come to fulfill a sacred
duty. In this case, imperative, as due to her own misdemeanours, the unmarried patient was suffering the consequences of an illegal interference, whereupon Professor jeeringly stressed his rights as master of the house. A house supported by noble philanthropists. When Father Rader, refusing discussion, wanted to enter the ward, Professor blocked his path. And when Father touched the door handle, Professor
gave him a shove.
That is a lie.
Filthy lie.
You were there, were you, Felder?
Shove with a point.
There are witnesses.
I know you're sort of witnesses.
I was there.
Then where's your account of what happened, Adler? How much of this is down to you, Ebenwald?
During this, patient died without
receiving the consolations of religion, which, according to the nurse, she asked for. By notifying the government, we ask the Minister of Education how he intends to give satisfaction to the deeply injured Christian population of Vienna. And moreover, if he doesn't think it fit, when it comes to the filling of public posts, to finally rule out men who, due to their education, character and dissent, are incapable of showing understanding to the religious feelings of the indigenous Christian population.
We've had it.
Why, Professor Felix? There's not a word against us.
Well said.
Bravo, Feuermann.
No stain on the Institute's name.
And its director?
Well, if he manages, and he will, to refute the aspersions.
Aspersions? Dr. Feuermann, do you honestly need me to spell it out? This is a political straight thrust from one sabre held by a coalition, the clerics and the anti-Semites.
Dribble, Flugfelder.
Oh.
Evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Bernhardi.
Who's sending nurses out to buy newspapers? You really need 12. Sorry I'm late. Shall we...
Your chair, Godwin.
Thank you.
We haven't been waiting long, Bernhardi.
Cigar. I declare the meeting open. Before we start, let me extend a welcome to our new department head, Dr. Feuermann. Full house, thank you. Your presence is proof of your devotion to our institute.
Lowenstein's missing.
Hopefully he'll be here soon. Gentlemen, a letter from the Secretary of the Board, Privy Councillor Winkler, hand-delivered to me this morning. Dear, etc., have the honour, etc. Well, they've all resigned. Ipso facto, today's agenda is, what is our response? Professor Abenwald desires the floor.
I'd like to ask the director if he knows why the board has resigned.
You mean you haven't read these Vienna dailies? Page 3, the question in Parliament.
That has no place here.
Has no place in Parliament, even.
Well put.
It's because of something I did. And there are witnesses, and some of them are at this table, and they know that today's bogus question is designed to serve the ends of a particular party.
Which one? The anti-Semitic clerical one.
I'm not here to justify myself to anyone. I'm here as director. Now, how do we respond to the board? Professor Kuprian has the floor.
Bernhardi acted as a doctor that morning. No one can deny that countless believers at death's door have found peace in the last rites, even non-believers. But the presence of a priest against the wishes of a dying person or the concerns of the doctor charged with his care is an unacceptable ecclesiastical trespass. Duty to stop that in certain cases.
I've never heard anything like it.
If you were acting on your conscience, you would have done what Bernhardi did. Yes, Ebenwald.
Oh, no.
And you, Felix.
Oh, don't speak for me, please.
Fear of the consequences might have moved you to let the priest in, nothing else. Bernhardi's mistake, if we can call it that, was that he held no such fear and followed his instinct as a doctor. There's only one response to the board: to unanimously pass a vote of confidence in our director.
Bravo!
Vice Director Abenwald has the floor.
I won't be hoodwinked. This is a disaster. The ingratitude, lack of respect for board and institute. If we declare our solidarity with Bernhardi, we're facing ruin. I disagree with Kuprian. No vote of confidence. Instead, I propose we express our regret at the incident and our condemnation of the director's behaviour, and that a plea be submitted to the board to withdraw its resignation.
Gentlemen, please! I have to tell you that we probably won't even need a board shortly. I had a long conversation with the Minister of Education last night. He wants to give us a subsidy. Our nationalisation is under consideration.
Some talk at the ball.
Wishful thinking.
A hand out in the middle of this mess.
Parliamentary question.
You seem to forget, gentlemen, that the question will get an answer from the Minister. And he has all the facts.
But the parliamentary question isn't the issue here.
Exactly. A motion's been proposed.
So let's vote.
Yes, Bernhardi, let's.
Very well, very well. Two motions, one from Professor Abenwald, namely
I've come from Parliament. Minister Flint has answered the question. The vote, Bernhardi.
And Lowenstein.
There's to be a criminal inquiry. A charge of religious agitation has been brought against you.
The Minister of Education, His Excellency Dr. Flint. Professor Bernhardi is my friend. He is a man of integrity. A man I have long admired.
At first, it looked as if the questioners were going to get it in the neck. Flint was oh so eloquent about your work at the Elizabeth Institute.
Work at the Elizabeth Institute has been remarkable. Professor Bernhardi is responsible for 10 years of scientific and humanitarian good to the people of Vienna and Austria. This is not a man steered by politics, by motions and subterfuge, by insincerity and flattery. This is a scientist. And Austria is a country in which merit comes before birth, nationality, religion.
And on, and then the objections started.
Jewish haven! Doctors who think they're Austrian law!
There are entire education system is being Jewified!
And suddenly the minister began to, digress.
Digress?
Got very hot under the collar.
Without faith, gentlemen, science is a very uncertain thing. Science in the classroom must be married to Christian teaching. Hospitals and churches must exist side by side. Half the illnesses that still baffle scientists like Professor Bernhardi are taken care of in churches.
I'm convinced he was flabbergasted by his own right turn. Well, there it was. For the sake of House
and Austria, I will be meeting with my colleague, the Minister of Justice, to discuss the indictment of Professor Bernhardi as a religious agitator.
What a disgrace.
How so, Flugfelder?
Strictly speaking, it doesn't concern us at all. Bernhardi? Bernhardi?
Thank you, Dr. Levenstein, for your report. Order, please. As noted, the parliamentary question and its answer are not for discussion. There are two resolutions.
I withdraw mine. The minister's answer has altered the lay of the land, so I assent to my motion's assimilation into a new motion.
The minister's answer has nothing to do with anything.
I move for the suspension of Professor Bernhardi as director of the Institute until the completion of the criminal inquiry against him.
I don't even know if he's going to be
How
charged.
offensive! How despicable!
You may have withdrawn your motion. Mine stands. A vote of
But the
confidence.
question in the House, it's bloody answer. To hell with it. It's got nothing to do with it. Want to look like a herd of asses.
Why settle anything tonight when it'll probably be overturned by the law
Rubbish,
tomorrow?
Bernhardi.
He has the right to void our resolutions.
Bernhardi is and remains director of this institute. No one can remove him.
He's no longer director in my eyes.
My motion. A vote of confidence now.
Everyone, listen. They'll need my testimony. I was there. Every witness knows the event was not depicted truthfully in the House. I'm convinced of Bernhardi's innocence. I can testify to it.
Thank you, Dr. Adler.
And it's because of this I welcome an inquiry. All of us, irrespective of partisanship,
There are no partisans in this hospital.
This has to be clarified publicly. We mustn't act preemptively. Therefore, I agree with the Vice Director's motion that the Director be suspended. Bit of common sense at last. And I ask everyone to see this as proof of my conviction that the inquiry will clear him completely.
But Adler, you're conceding that it's justified in the first place.
Flint is an obsequious...
My motion.
Gentlemen.
We should vote on Ebenwald's first.
I have a question for Professor Ebenwald.
Not allowed, according to the rules of procedure. Oh, shut up, Felix.
Please, go ahead.
You've proposed a motion for my suspension as a result of the minister's answer. Did you know that I could have prevented the question?
Well, how interesting. Don't respond to that.
If you're half a man, Ebenwald, you will.
That's easy.
Well, the gauntlet. I have nothing to hide. 2 nights ago I spoke to the director and warned him that Parliament might use the amusing thing with the priest against us. Some of you have no idea how to deal with popular trends. It doesn't matter whether they are defensible or not. Institutions like ours have to deal with them. Put simply, given that we have an archduke and a bishop on our board, and that statistically 85% of our patients are Catholic, there are people who think it wrong that the majority of our doctors belong to a different denomination. It breeds bad blood.
It's funny how 80% of the cash we get comes from this other denomination.
Right. Not the point, Löwenstein. The patients are the point. As you know, recently there was dialogue about Professor Tugendwetter's replacement. Should it be Dr. Hell or Dr. Feuermann? Hello there. Shh. Now, picture it, gentlemen. A good friend comes to you...
Or a reptilian cousin.
Comes and says, might look a bit fishy, appointing another Jew with this embarrassing incident, the talk of Vienna. Parliament might pounce. Was it so wrong of me to go to the director and say, let's appoint Dr. Hell, who's no slouch after all, in order to sidestep more mess?
He's quite right.
Well, there you have it. Dr. Feuermann agrees with me. I could have asked Feuermann to withdraw, but I'm no conspirator, so I went to the top. And we might not be talking about questions in the House tonight if Dr. Hell were sitting there. Instead, it's Feuermann, and we're knee-deep in it.
Bravo, Bernhardi.
Gentlemen, I'm not going to defend myself for not doing business with a deal-maker.
Oh.
If you call me a religious agitator, I can call Ebenwald a deal-maker.
Precisely.
But it doesn't matter. Mea culpa. I confess, guilty. Guilty that, as director, I didn't do everything I could to stop a manoeuvre in Parliament designed to belittle us in the eyes of frauds and fools. I accept the consequences. I hereby tender my resignation.
What are you doing? Stop! You must insist!
You can't leave before a vote. I won't allow it. I won't be judged.
Too late for that. Have you resigned or haven't?
I have, Schreiman.
Then Professor Ebenwald is acting director and chairman of this meeting.
You're right. This is going too far.
Please.
Professor Bernhardi has resigned, so in line with our statute, paragraph 4, clause 3, I am your acting director. I hope I have your loyalty. I hope I shall prove worthy. I give Professor Felix the floor.
You are not director, Ebenwald, not yet.
The question now is, who's going to take over Bernhardi's department?
What are you talking about? I'm still a member of the Institute, gentlemen, and head of my department.
Goes without saying.
I think it could get a bit sticky whether suspended director.
He is not suspended.
He tendered his resignation.
Well, not exactly voluntarily.
He chucked that square at your repellent head, Felix.
Oh, shut up! Nobody has the right to force me from my department. But I'll take leave until this is settled.
What are you doing?
Leave approved. Thank you. While I'm away, I entrust my department to my assistant, Dr. Oscar Bernhardi.
No objection here.
I'm sure he can squeeze it in between composing operettas.
Good night, gentlemen.
I'm coming with you.
So am I. No, Coupry and Löwenstein. They'd love that. Stay.
No, you stay, Bernhardi.
Slightly concerned, Professor, you've got the wrong end of the stick. I'd like to say, for the record, how much I admire you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Adler. You're either with me or you're against me. Good night.
And then, Father Rader, you were shocked by Professor Bernhardi.
No.
No.
Not shocked, sir. Tapped. He placed his hand on my shoulder. It was a tap.
Very charitable of you, Father. I think there is a fine line between a tap and shove. I imagine, like all your colleagues, you prefer to see the good in people. Gentlemen of the jury, a case in point of Christian clemency. And then, Mr. Hochkreuz-Pointner.
Then, Professor Bernhardi shoved the priest...
Thank you, Mr.
Hochkreuz-Pointner.
That is a lie! Order! My name is Maximilian Adler. I was there! That Hock is lying!
Remove that man from court!
And so, nurse, you acted on the priest's instruction and went into the ward to ready the patient?
Yes, Father Rader nodded to me.
And when you came back into the anteroom to tell Father Rader the patient had died, what did you see?
I saw that...
Take your time.
Professor Bernhardi had his hand... He was pushing.
Yes?
He was blocking and pushing Father Rader, preventing him from entering the ward.
Quite violently?
Quite violently, blocking and pushing and shoving.
Professor Bernhardi, did you or did you not say that it would be an ungodly thing for a priest to see Philomena Bayer?
I summons Professor Ebenwald, Vice Director of the Elizabeth Institute.
That is ridiculous, Professor. It is not for you to summons anyone. Besides which, Professor Ebenwald was nowhere near the anteroom to the ward at the time of the incident. Now, please, answer the question.
Then I summons the Minister for Education, His Excellency Dr. Flint.
Order! Professor Bernhardi, you are in contempt.
Father Rader, do you believe Professor Bernhardi intended any hostility towards the Catholic Church?
I do not.
The defence rests, Your Honour.
Have you reached your verdict?
We have.
2 bloody months!
Could have been worse, Löwenstein.
Professor Flinkfelder, Kolker from the Vienna Daily, what do you have to say?
I have to say that the judges entered with that conviction typed up in their briefcases.
Listen to this.
I have to say that the jurors were venomous asses, treated as the brains in Austria's top drawer by a clerical-loving prosecution and a craven defence.
That's right, when they lose, they blame the lawyers! That's it! Another
I have to say that Bernhardi's act was not an act of anti-Catholicism, but the act of a doctor. That girl thought she was cured, the sweetest moment of her life. And my friend didn't want to disabuse her.
Of a place in heaven?
He asked that priest to let that poor child die peacefully. Asked! Your religious feelings weren't offended. This is fodder for career-hungry scandal-mongers. This is about politics. A ludicrous pantomime of lies, hoaxes, bootlicking.
Enough, you traitor! Come on, let's go home.
No, I need a bloody drink.
Oh, Oscar, no tears.
I'm angry, Professor Cyprian, not sad. Even the priest.
I know.
The prosecution twisted and Hockroyd's Pointner.
Tried, Oscar. I wanted a trial, but I had no idea that Cyprian and I would be seen as less reliable witnesses than the likes of that nurse. And hop.
Take me to the nearest Council of Honour, Dr. Adler. I'm going to challenge that bastard to a duel.
No, Oscar.
You'll crawl under a rock before you get the chance.
Even if I wanted to, I couldn't, could I, Professor Flugfelder? Because I'm a Jew. How does their German nationalist manifesto put it? A Jew can't duel because a Jew has no honour. A Jew is subhuman. A Jew can't be insulted, so can't demand satisfaction for an insult. Well, I demand satisfaction from Hockroyd's Pointner. I haven't finished with him, even if they've finished with my father.
It's not over yet, Oscar.
You have better things to do.
I'm sorry. I don't feel like drinking, gentlemen.
Oscar! It's about to rain!
Let him be. His father's let him down today.
What?
Summonsing Ebenwald and Minister Flint. He might as well have summons his nanny.
Cyprian Flint promised
Crony to the clerics. And have you heard what's coming? Compulsory confession for school children. Scientist, Minister for Education and presumptuous padres.
That's enough, Flugfelder. You're worse than a tub thumper.
What are we going to do?
Nothing, Löwenstein. He doesn't want to appeal.
What? He has to. We cannot give in to lies and liars. We have to move the world.
But don't any of you understand? Moving the world is the last thing Bernhardi wanted to do.
This isn't my fault. I'm not to blame. I'm truly sorry to see you in this state, Professor. You heard me in court. You weren't motivated by hostility towards me or the church. I believe that. Though many people will never forgive me for saying it.
Why are you here, Father Rader? Do you want my thanks for telling the truth under oath? Then have it. Thank you. Thank you.
Please go.
I don't want your thanks. You acted correctly that day.
I beg your pardon?
I concede it. That's why I'm here. You acted correctly, understand me, in your capacity as doctor. You had your responsibilities as I had mine, and you couldn't have acted differently.
I am in prison, Father Rader.
I'm not to blame.
You are if you admit I acted correctly.
You don't understand.
You admitted in my prison cell, but not in court.
Please let me explain. In courts, I had an insight. A revelation, really. One more word from me, and I would have done damage, untold damage, to a holy cause.
What could be holier than the truth?
Professor, you can't mean there's nothing holier than the minor truth in this one case. No. I admitted your good intention. If I'd also conceded it was your right to send me away from that woman, a Christian, a sinner, then the enemies of my church would have seized it and twisted it to their own ends. Compassion would have become treason. The slight truth would have become a wider lie. I'd have been a traitor to my church and God. That's why I didn't say it in court.
But the court is the only place that would have helped me. What good is it to me here? Why now?
Because when I had the revelation, I promised myself I'd tell you. The world wouldn't have understood, but I owe it to you.
Well, Father, I hope you never have to testify publicly in a case with more at stake than me. You could have your private doubts, I mean your divine revelation, and end up butchering an even higher truth than the one you think you had to protect.
There is no higher truth than the truth of my church, and its first rule is obedience. It's different for men like you. The church throws a blanket of blessing over the world. If I were thrown out, my life would become meaningless.
I've read of priests who found meaning after they left.
If I belonged to them, God would have made me say in court the things I said here.
Oh, I see. God buttoned your lips. And now God sent you to my prison cell for your confidential confession that it was taboo in a public court of law. Your God makes it very easy for you, doesn't he?
That is a kind
I'm sorry, I can't forgive you.
I didn't come here for forgiveness.
Then what?
Solace, perhaps. And I have that now, yes. I'm beginning to see this whole thing in a new light. I was wrong about the real reason I came, was sent. It wasn't to concede anything. It was to free myself from a doubt. I hardly realised I even had it. And now it's vanished. I see what I was meant to see at last. I withdraw my concession. You were wrong when you sent me away from that dying child's bed.
Father, I am tired.
Others might have been right in the same position, but not you. Apparently, you stopped me on the grounds of medical care, human compassion. You didn't. They were pretexts. Perhaps not conscious ones, but pretexts all the same.
1 minute you say I had my responsibilities, and now you've changed your mind.
Now I don't accept you stopped me purely on the grounds you claim. Perhaps you think you did. I was close to believing it myself. But no, the real reason is deep inside you, rooted at the base of your soul. You dislike me. You hate me.
Hate?
Hate this cloth. You can't hide it. I felt the heat of it then, I feel it now. Everything, your posture, your words, hate. The hatred men like you have for men like me.
Hate? Hate. And if it were true, if I'm really capable of such a thing, mightn't it be justified after everything I've been through, the lies, the abuse, which you think shameful? I can't deny it, I have felt something like hatred, but not towards you, towards the whole circus around you. Father, I swear, when I barred you from that ward, there wasn't a breath of hate in me. I faced you as a doctor. My heart pure. As pure as any priest, as pure as yours. You admitted that. And now you're denying it because you feel... You feel the same thing I feel. I've never felt it more intensely. Something divides us. It'll separate us forever, this thing. I'm sorry, but hate doesn't define it. It's much bigger. Bigger and more hopeless. An unbridgeable abyss.
But if we're both free of hate, then why is it there? Communication is possible between faith and doubt. Perhaps it's not between humility and presumption.
Presumption? You call the thing at the root of my soul presumption? Yet you don't hate men like me.
I don't, I know it. My religion tells me to love those who hate me.
And mine? Or the thing that fastens itself to my heart in its place is to understand. Even when I'm misunderstood. And if it's harder for men like me than men like you, well, God, who created you so humble and me so presumptuous, surely has his own mysterious reasons.
What would you do now?
I'm a father. And a doctor. I heal. Or try to. That's what I'm on this earth to do, and that's what I'll return to as soon as I'm out of this dungeon.
Will you shake my hand?
Across the abyss, Father Raider?
You'd better not look down, Professor Bernhardi. Not even for a second.
The offices of the Imperial Ministry for Education, Privy Councillor Winkler.
Professor Abenfeld, Privy Councillor.
Good morning, Professor.
I'd like to speak to Minister Flint, if possible.
He's due in Parliament at 2, Professor. He's at his desk till then.
It's about the subsidy for the Institute.
Of course it is. The Male Minister and Professor Ebenwald is on his way.
Can't keep away from us, can he?
The Elizabeth Institute is, well, penniless.
But the board came back, didn't they, after Bernhardi's removal?
Yes, but it turns out that the only one who could keep it away was Bernhardi.
Aren't you on the board?
I am.
A subsidy. I promised my friend that. You know, back then.
The figures are rather large, Excellency.
I'll demand a separate loan in Parliament. Liberals can't start getting stingy over the sustenance of scientific institutes, can they? As for the Christian socials and clericals, they do owe me one, I believe.
Yes, Excellency. They certainly do.
Thank you, Privy Councillor. Busy morning.
The offices of the Imperial Ministry for Education, Privy Councillor Winkler.
Winkler. Kulka here, Vienna Daily.
Kulka.
Does Minister Flint have anything to say about the huge groups of students that have greeted Professor Bernhardi on his release from prison this morning?
Really?
It's a freethinkers pageant down there. They're composing anthems.
Are they?
There's your bone, Winkler. Throw one back.
No statement. Goodbye. This morning's newspapers, Excellency.
What's made the front page?
Bernhardi's release from prison.
Anything else?
Congratulations on yesterday's speech, sir.
I didn't put you down as being in favour of a more robust programme of religious education.
Are you in favour, Excellency?
What I think about these matters in private is neither here nor there. Leave it to dilettantes to jabber out opinions. The melody of convictions very thin-sounding. In politics, what counts is, counterpoint. That'll do.
The offices of the Imperial Ministry for Education, Privy Councillor Winkler. Berman. How's life at the Ministry of Justice?
No time for chat. I've got the most extraordinary tidbit. You remember that nurse in the Bernhardi affair? She wants a meeting with us. She's on her way.
Don't be ridiculous.
Take it or leave it, Winkler.
On the day of Bernhardi's release?
Isn't it a coincidence?
What does she want?
Who knows? Shall we keep this under our hat for the time being?
If you don't want me to tell His Excellency, I won't. Goodbye.
Some hack has branded me Minister for Education and Roman Catholicism.
No, Excellency.
Even the liberal press has lost all restraint. They're practically martyring Bernhardi as the victim of a popish plot. The Dreyfus of the hospitals. Positive glee at his release.
Hardly Professor Bernhardi's fault.
Why do they assume politics is easy? It was a sacrifice to throw my old friend into the jaws of those sharks, but it was necessary. And it's all there for the record. Well, I hope Bernhardi doesn't give in to this rabble-rousing. He'll regret it. Faced with law-breaking, we'll apply the law. I'd be sorry for him then. He hasn't behaved wisely, and he's caused me a lot of pain. But still, he's not a bad sort. Always thought that. Always will.
Friends of youth.
Oh, don't start gushing about youth, Winkler. Bernhardi and I were bright-eyed students together a quarter of a century ago, but it adds up to sweet nothing. Damn the heart. Stride over corpses. I'll be in my office, and don't disturb me unless it's the Emperor.
Excuse me, Privy Councillor. Oh, Excellency. Professor Abenwald is here.
Damn the whole bloody thing! Bernhardi this, Elizabeth Institute that. Professor Abenwald, how delightful to see you. I trust all is well with your directorship?
Acting director only, Excellency. It's not out of the question that Bernhardi will be re-elected in the coming days.
By law, of course, he's stripped of his professorship and doctorhood.
Yes, but thanks to his friends and sections of the press, there seems to have been a seismic shift in public opinion.
You'll hear about the subsidy?
Yes, Excellency.
Sadly, we can only give you a gobbet of what you were expecting. Don't forget, we have to deal not just with your institute, but the entire field of Roman Catholic education.
We did hope, Excellency, that since you're a doctor yourself, you'd show particular support for the field of medical education, so badly neglected under the previous minister.
Bullseye, Ebenwald! My Achilles heel! Keep this to yourself, although use it in the house, but sometimes I'm homesick for the sick room. Oh, yes. I remember when I was working in Prague.
The officers of...
The nurse is here, Winkler. She's with the Minister of Justice right now.
Well, listen at the keyhole.
Excuse me, Privy Councillor.
I'm on the telephone.
Professor Bernhardi is here. He won't leave till he's spoken to His Excellency in person.
Have to go, Berman. You have the nurse. I have the professor himself. I'm very pleased to see you again, Professor Bernhardi.
So am I, Privy Councillor. So am I.
The Minister is in a meeting. He won't be disturbed for anyone less than the Emperor.
Must be someone important, then.
It's Professor Abenwald.
I'm afraid, Abenwald, politicians only get recognition when they're 6 feet under. Bernhardi?
Flint?
Bernhardi?
Abenwald?
I'll show you the door, Professor Abenwald. I'll hold all calls, Excellency.
What a luxurious office you have.
Do sit.
Thank you.
Well, this is excellent. An opportunity to wish you hearty congratulations on your release, old man. Unhappily, my official role meant it was impossible to let you know how shocked and embarrassed I was at the verdict. Anyway, done and dusted, if there's anything you want.
How kind, Excellency. I am here to ask a favour. It's Archduke Constantin. He's very ill.
I hadn't heard.
He's called for me.
What's stopping you?
You know perfectly well it would be quackery if I attended the Archduke. As I let myself agitate religiously and get convicted for it, I forfeited my right to practice. You've shown before, old friend, that you have some leverage with the Minister of Justice, so if you could lever him again in my name, the Archduke won't have to wait.
You're here to laugh at me.
No, I don't want to be thrown in the clink, as good as they were to me last time. So if you'd be kind enough to sign my appeal.
Done. Take full responsibility. See no reason why you can't treat the Archduke within the hour. No consequences, you have my word. Good enough?
In this case, keeping it shouldn't be too hard.
Bernhardi!
Excellency?
Archduke, my foot. You accuse me of breaking my word, is that it?
Yes, Flint, you lied in Parliament.
I did not. The only word I gave was that I'd stand up for you, and I couldn't have done that better than by aiming for clarity, i.e. a trial. It's about time you understood that there are higher things in public life than keeping your word, as you define it, Bernhardi. They're to keep your eye on the target, to not let your work be wrenched from your hands. I realised that as I was about to take your side in the House that day and felt the white-hot umbrage of the men around me.
So you simply altered your position?
My friend, I had a choice. I could trip into an abysmal pit with you and, in doing so, commit a crime against my calling and country, or I could sell you down the river. In a flash, I chose the latter, so I could build new scientific institutes, modernize the faculties, improve public health, reform our spiritual life. I don't think these things have been paid for too dearly by 8 weeks clapped in irons, especially as you weren't even clapped in irons. Because I hope you don't think I admire your martyrdom. If you'd borne all this bother in the name of something great, of an idea, of your religion, of your fatherland, then I'd have some real respect for you. But let me tell you, as an old friend, I see in your entire behaviour nothing more than a tragicomedy of bloody-mindedness. And furthermore, I very much doubt if you had stuck to your rock so comprehensively were it still the Austrian thing to tie people to stakes and set them on fire. How dare you?
Just in case you missed it, Excellency.
Why on earth are you here? This pathetic Archduke Ruse.
Obviously, Flint, I came to hear an explanation of your behaviour towards me. For the Minister and the Convict. Good title for a book, don't you think? What a book worth bothering with.
Oh, bother! Do! It could double as your inaugural speech when you become a politician.
Oh, no, politics is your game, old friend.
Politics? To hell with politics! I took on this portfolio because I knew there was no one else in Austria who could do what needs to be done. I won't be staying long. I'm a doctor. That's the real me. I'm a teacher of medicine. I long to get back on the ward, to look out on a sea of student faces in a lecture hall.
The offices of
The nurse, the Bernhardi nurse.
Yes?
She's lodged a declaration accusing herself of giving false evidence in court.
She's what?
She's what?
She says she's lied. There was no shove.
The Crown witness, Privy Councillor?
Yes, Excellency. You'll demand a new trial, of course, Professor Bernhardi.
What? You are joking. Never.
But Bernhardi...
To what end? Throw new light on the hoax, it's still a hoax. Anyone with sense knows I was innocent. And I can't get my 2 months back.
Oh, you do go on about those 2 months, as if they matter a fig. We're talking about higher values here. You've no sense of justice, Bernhardi.
I'm gathering that.
What else, Privy Councillor?
The curious thing, Excellency, is that the nurse first confessed her false testimony. That is, in the confessional. Her confessor then asked her to make good her sin.
Her priest?
Clearly, he didn't have a clue who she was.
That is quite a statement, sir. What proof do you have of that?
I can't go to court again. I'll certify that the nurse is an hysterical lunatic.
Oh, how like you.
Well, what have I got to gain from having the poor woman jailed?
She might have company inside. Don't forget that other witness, Mr. Hockwitz Pointner. If she lied, so did he. Apparently, he's already feeling the heat from Flugfelder. And your son.
You seem to know everything, Winkler.
It's in the job description, Excellency.
Oscar has better things to do than pursue Hockroyd's Pointner.
In the confessional. Well, won't this befuddle certain individuals? It could turn out that Catholic customs may occasionally be extremely helpful to Jews.
I don't want helpful customs, I want peace.
Bernhardi, it isn't really down to what you want. Incidentally, it would be a little quaint, now that we're on the path of justice, if you were to go off the beaten track and start fraternising with hacks and publishers and so forth.
It's over.
Oh, fancy.
Done with.
But I heard some talk of a book, didn't I?
There's no book now. And if there's another trial, my statement from the first is on record. I've nothing to add. This is personal, Flint, not political.
The two are often the same.
I'm not responsible for that. I won't take the stand again.
But you won't be able to stop me if I think I should. Even you'll understand, Bernhardi, my intention from the beginning of this entire affair was to aim for clarity. The first trial was, of course, a necessity, or how would we have arrived at a second? I foresee the bright light of transparency this time. Now, we mustn't be rash. Hasty climbers have sudden falls.
What's that?
It's a statement of the facts. A certain old statement about clerical machinations that might yet have its day in the coming clash. Your statement from the ball, explaining the ins and outs of the whole shebang. The rock-bottom truth.
The Minister of Justice, Excellency, he'd like to see you.
Excellent. If you'd be kind enough to stay for a moment, Bernhardi.
Archduke Constantine
has the constitution of several large animals. He's waited 2 long months for you. I don't think he's going to keel over in the next half hour. Keep him here, Privy Councillor. We may need to put our heads together, plan the attack. Not a lot to ask, after everything. My old friend.
I've got to get out of Vienna.
And what about your patience?
What am I going to do?
Get used to it. Wear it with pride.
Pride? Privy Councillor, you've no idea how ridiculous I feel. That reception at the jail, the letters, the editorials. All my plans, my book, ridiculous. Do you know, I'm not even sure it is personal any longer. I don't even know if I had a score to settle with Flint. You should have heard him. I couldn't be angry with him. I almost wonder if I ever was.
He always liked you, Professor.
Oh, now the nurse?
Yes.
Another trial?
I think so.
I've got to escape, Privy Councillor. I have to find my self-respect. This noise. People are discovering I was right. I can't stick around for that.
But, Professor, being right doesn't mean being popular. The odd politician catches the mood of his country. Sheer luck. Anyway, it's a conceit of yours that you were right.
What?
You heard.
You think... What do you think? That I should have let the priest...
Oh, no doubt about it, because you're not a born reformer, are you?
How many more times...
You don't have what it takes to go to the bitter end for your beliefs, to risk your life for them. I don't either. That's why the decent thing for the likes of us is to simply not get into this kind of pickle in the first place.
But you're trying to imply...
There's nothing to be gained from it. Sparing that pitiful girl a fright on her deathbed was like trying to solve poverty by giving a beggar a castle.
Privy Councillor, like everyone else, you're forgetting I never wanted to solve anything. I just did in one case, what I thought was right.
Yes, you see, that was your silly mistake. If I decided to always do the right thing, actually, if unintentionally I began one morning after breakfast to do the right thing and continued to do the right thing for the rest of the day, I'd be locked up by sundown.
Privy Councillor, if you were in my position, you'd have done exactly as I did.
Perhaps, but then, like you, I'd have been a bloody jackass. If you'll pardon me, Professor Bernhardi. The offices of the Imperial Ministry for Education, Privy Councillor Winkler. Ah! Yes, I thought... No, I really can't... How many more times?
In Professor Bernhardi by Arthur Schnitzler, the title role was played by Christopher Godwin. Kuprian, David Horovitch. Ebenwald, Dale Rapley. Hochkreuzpointner, Justin Salinger. Oscar Bernhardi and Feuermann, Tom Godwin. Löwenstein and Tugendwetter, John Dougall. Filitz, Geoffrey Beevers. Pflugfelder, John Stahl. Father Franz Rader and Schreimann, Andrew Havill. Minister Flint, Andrew Woodall. Winkler and Adler, Mark Lockyer. Philomena Bayer, Sophie Roberts. Frau Filitz, Rachel Atkins. Professor Bernhardi was directed by Mark Rosenblatt and adapted by Samuel Adamson from their original stage production for Dumbfounded Theatre. It was a unique production for BBC Radio 3.